All right, guys, welcome to part 2 of my 2022 Husqvarna TE150 long-term review. So this part will cover in a little bit more detail each different component: engine, transmission, suspension, chassis, and so on. And we will go over some of the mods that I've done as well. So this is part 2. We will get to talking about the suspension, the engine, all that stuff as soon as I get myself out of this river. All right, guys, we are out of the river and onto the mountain. And I apologize if there's a little bit of wind noise. It's a little breezy, but it is absolutely gorgeous up here. It is, I think, what they call golden hour. So we're just gonna roll with it, and hopefully the wind noise is not too bad. So we will start with the engine. So the engine has been fantastic. I'm not going to go into the 150 versus 300 or any of that kind of stuff too deeply. I'll just say that the 150 does everything I want. I'm 175 pounds without gear, so I'm not a super light guy, and I do a bunch of technical stuff, and it works great for me. I think if you want a little bit of an easier ride, or if you're doing really just a lot of climbs and that's all you do, then obviously a bigger engine might be nice for you. But I think this engine is very similar to the old 200. It's got a lot of torque for a small bore, even when you're off the pipe. So I mostly ride it off the pipe, and it's a sweetheart. And I think it teaches you to be a better rider as well. Something that I do also really like, and was actually part of the selling point for me for this bike, is the fact that it still has a kickstart. I've never used it. The starting system on this bike has been 100% foolproof. It's 2 years old now. It still has this stock lithium battery. Starts every time. I've never put that battery on a tender or anything. It just works. It's fantastic. I haven't touched anything power-wise. It's all stock. I changed the gear oil as recommended. And it's been great. Clutch has been stock, the stock original clutch, no issues with it. It works really, really well. I haven't messed with the power valve. I didn't feel like I needed to. I had to replace one spark plug. It fouled. The TPI system has been flawless. No issues with the oil pump or any of the sensors. I checked the screen at around 50 hours. It looked great. I tested the pump using the procedure you can find in the manual or online, and did a flow measurement, which seemed like it lined up with what people are typically getting on these pumps as well. One more thing on the engine is just I think the power delivery on the TPIs is kind of one of those things that some people love, others hate. It is very, very linear, which I personally really like. I think it makes it very predictable. It runs exactly the same. Doesn't matter temperature or fuel mixture or anything like that you typically mess with the carb with. It runs the same all the time. It's very, very predictable, which makes it a lot easier to ride for me in technical terrain. You never get those like weird random bogs that then you don't get enough, lift over a rock or a log and go over the handlebars. You can rely on this bike to give you the power you need when you need it, which I think is a major advantage of TPIs. But you're not going to have that snap that carburetors have, which I think is that's a pretty well-known difference between the two systems. So moving to the exhaust is stock. I have this pipe guard, which works pretty well. The pipe is a little higher on this bike and a little smaller than the 300s. So I haven't really smashed it that much. I think that's another kind of advantage. And also it's a lot higher than the older 150s, the pre-TPIs. So it's been very durable. The only modification really I have made to the bike is the spark arrestor tip from Enduro Engineering, which I don't, I like the tip, it looks cool. I don't like the spark arrestor, the screen type spark arrestor. It gets clogged up pretty quickly, and then your bike starts spooging like crazy, especially if you're doing a lot of technical riding. I don't know if I can show it to you guys, but I don't know if it's going to be visible, but it's pretty black now, and I probably cleaned it 10 hours ago. So I've been just taking this apart and just cleaning it with a torch. You can burn all the carbon off pretty easily. All right, so let's move to the transmission and the clutch. So the transmission, I don't really like very much on this bike. I think the gearing is a little weird. I think the first gear is too low, second gear is too tall, sixth gear is too short. So it's just not, it's not great, in my personal opinion. I haven't changed the sprockets. These are the stock sprockets, which are wearing very well for 100 hours. You can see the rear sprocket is still in really good shape. The chain's lasting really well as well. So the other aspect that I don't really like about the transmission is the fact that it's pretty notchy. It's not the smoothest shifting transmission, and I changed the gear oil, used the recommended gear oil. It doesn't really matter whether it's fresh or not fresh, it just still doesn't feel as smooth as some other bikes. I do really like the shifter. It's very comfortable. I think KTM shifters are in general some of the better ones. They're durable, they're comfortable, the tip is big, it folds nicely, so that part is really good. And related to that is the clutch. I think the Bractec clutch is probably one of my favorite ones that I've ever used. I really like how light it is. It's really, really predictable, easy to modulate. I've had zero problems with it. The levers, the Bractec levers they have a pro and a con. The pro is that the brake and clutch levers are the same. So you can use them interchangeably if you, but I think the shape of them is not great. They're really narrow compared to the Brembos. So if you get on a KTM after riding this bike, you immediately feel that the levers are much more comfortable on the KTM. All right, now that we're up here, let's talk about the brakes. So overall, I actually really like the brakes. I think the Bractec stuff maybe gets a bad rap because it's a little bit less known in the enduro world. But they, first of all, they use Brembo pads or Brembo compatible pads. So you can use the same pads as any KTM, both front and rear. And they have been flawless as far as hydraulics go, which I can't say for Brembos. These I've set the lever position and the foot brake position when I bought the bike, and I have not touched it for 100 hours. Haven't changed the fluid, haven't need to bleed them, nothing. And this is riding anywhere from like 20 degrees Fahrenheit to 100 degrees Fahrenheit at slightly different elevations, anywhere from probably sea level to 5,000 feet. So haven't had to do anything at all. The pads are still the stock pads. They're the ones that came on the bike. They work great. The rear brake I really like. I think it's got really good feel. The front brake I actually also really like for really technical terrain, especially for steep descents. It's very, very progressive. It doesn't grab as hard as a KTM. So if you're going down a loose steepy, like out here on this property, there's some descents that are just loose rock and dirt, and you have to be really careful on your front brake. And this brake is really good for that. If you're riding hard pack, really high grip stuff aggressively, yeah, maybe, or try to do stoppies. This does not have as much bite as a KTM brake, and you really have to squeeze it hard to get the front wheel to lock up. So again, could be a pro, could be a con. It's just really up to you. All right, so let's talk about the suspension now. I really like the stock Explorer suspension. I've replaced the fork oil once in the forks. Other than that, it's 100% factory. Obviously, I set the settings, made sure the sag is right. But I typically go between standard and comfort on the forks and shock. If I'm riding a lot of loose rocks, big rocks, sometimes I'll set it to comfort just to get a little bit more compliance out of it. But in general, especially for a little bit quicker riding, I find that standard works really well for me, and I really like it. It's very, very predictable at any of the speeds that I ride at. I know probably some faster riders and some more aggressive riders might find that the damping is a little insufficient if they're really hitting stuff hard and fast, but for me it works very, very well. And something that I've always liked about WP suspension and open cartridge suspension in general is how easy it is to service. So changing the oil on these forks or changing the seals and the bushings is very easy. You can do it in your garage with a couple special tools that are pretty cheap, and it makes working on your bike much easier. Obviously the shock is a little bit different, or a little bit more difficult, just because it doesn't have a bladder, but there's bladder kits and all kinds of tools that you can get to do the service yourself as well, or service the shock yourself and just take it somewhere to get it filled with nitrogen. So the other aspect of the suspension are these billet triple clamps, which look cool. I honestly can't necessarily tell the difference. Maybe if I were to ride a KTM and this back to back, maybe it would be apparent, but I can't really tell the difference much. The only thing I will say is I think they might clamp a little bit better, just because they're wide and they're stiff, because I don't get the bars twisted quite as frequently as I did on my KTM. All right, so let's talk about the ergonomics real quick. So the Husqvarna has a little bit of a higher bar bend than Gas and KTM. I find that it makes you feel like you're a little bit more in the bike versus on top of the front end of the bike. Whether that's a pro or con is honestly personal preference, but just something to keep in mind. They're high quality pro taper bars. I like the grips. Comes with ODI lock-on grips, very durable, very comfortable as well. Everything about this bike feels just generally very natural. So all the controls are exactly where you expect them to be. The foot pegs are very comfortable. I think KTM has some of the best factory foot pegs. The brake and shifter are exactly where you expect them to be, and very easy to reach. So ergonomically, I think this bike is really good as far as the controls go. As far as sitting on the bike and moving around on the bike, I think this is also a huge pro to the Husky, in my opinion. I really like how flat the seat is, especially towards the back. It's actually a very comfortable seat. I find it more comfortable than the KTM, definitely more comfortable than the Gas seat, that Gas that I used to have. Really probably the most comfortable dirt bike seat, stock dirt bike seat that I've ever experienced. The back of the bike also, the way that it's shaped, is kind of flat and really makes moving around pretty easily. I will say that for some reason I do find it a little bit more difficult to grip this bike with my legs than the KTM. I don't know if it's the way that these plastics are or what, but it does feel a little bit more slippery. And you can see all right, so let's move into the body work. I think the plastics that they use on the Husqvarnas are incredibly durable. You can see I still have the stock graphics, even though some of it is starting to rub through. Very, very durable. I've broken certain things, but I have not broken others. So I have broken 2 subframes and a rear fender because it was very cold when I was riding, and the rear fender just shattered. The subframes, I don't know if that was related to the cold or just you know, doing stupid stuff. But everything else has been very durable plastics wise. Like I said, I think Husky uses very high quality plastics. And let's move into the wheels and tires. The stock tires that came on this bike were Dunlop AT81s, which seem like they work pretty well in a little bit more hard pack terrain. In Michigan sand, I did not like them at all, so I replaced them with this. I went through a couple different tires, but currently I'm running a Bridgestone M59 that I really like. It's very predictable, very high grip tire, does exactly what you want it to do. And then VE33S Dakota from IRC in the back. It's a hybrid gummy tire. It is a very good versatile tire for all kinds of terrains. The wheels have been awesome. I run mooses, so I hit stuff pretty hard, rocks and logs and all that kind of stuff. And I've never had a loose spoke. On my previous bikes, I've definitely had to tighten some spokes before. I've even lost spokes. So I'm very happy with these wheels. They have been absolutely solid. They also look really nice. Black wheels, I feel like, always look great. All right, so let's go top to bottom and talk about the modifications that I've done. Almost all of my modifications are related to protection. So start with the hand guards. That's a pretty basic one. Some people like flags. I ride in a lot of trees and brushes and stuff, so I prefer the full wraps. These are the 08 Husqvarna Power Parts hand guards. They're pretty sure I'm pretty sure they're made by Barkbusters. I really like them. I really like that this part is really flexible. So if you do go over the bars, it kind of flexes out of the way and is just generally nice and flexy. They are also very securely mounted. They pretty much never move. Moving to a little bit down on the bike, I am running the KTM Power Parts radiator braces. They're plastic. They weigh nothing. They cost something like 50 bucks. Really easy to install. Everything fits great. They're not as durable as aluminum cages, but they've been working well for me. I haven't had any issues. Pipe guard, I know it's a very controversial thing. Some people say you know that they'd rather fix pipes than flanges or whatever, but I drop my bike a lot, and before I ran a pipe guard, I would be fixing my pipe like every other ride because I have big dents. You know, bike tips over, falls on a log, and you have a big dent in your pipe. This is a Moose Racing skid plate, which is the same thing as an AXP skid plate, just rebranded. I don't like it very much. I think the protection is great, but the fitment is not good. I actually had to bend it a lot myself. When it came, it was almost flat, and I had to trim it in a bunch of different spots because it was interfering with my brake. My understanding is, so I reached out to AXP. They actually were very cool. They talked to me, and they said that this is an old design, they're making a new design, and you know, sorry about my experience, the new one's going to be better. So great for AXP for responding to me and making their products better. So that's you know, great company. This specific product is but it is protective, I will say that. Next up, these are KTM branded swing arm guards. Cheap, fit well, look pretty nice. Keep your swing arm a little nicer. I would recommend taking them off and cleaning it underneath it once in a while. Spark arrestor, we talked about. The Tusk brake rotor guard. I think it works great. You can see it taking a lot of abuse. It's probably one of the cheaper ones. I like that it's blue. It looks cool. So highly recommend this Tusk radiator or rear rotor guard. OEM Husqvarna brake tip. I am mixed feelings on this. So I like that it's bigger. It is feel comfortable. It is wearing a little bit quickly. That's my biggest problem with it. But it is very durable. It doesn't ruin your boots as much as some other brake tips. So it is also a little bit expensive, but it does also look nice. So I could take it or leave it. I don't know if I would use it again personally. This is a Polysport front rotor guard. I used all kinds of different ones. This one I kind of like because you don't need to take it off to take the wheel off. But if you're taking your brake caliper off, you do need to take it off. So if you're taking your suspension off. But I do like, yeah, if you're just taking your wheels off, this is a very quick way to do it. It's a little quicker than the Turbis one, which I used to have. And it's cheaper than a lot of other ones. And it comes with the fork protectors for both sides. So there's, you get the fork protectors and a rotor guard. And it's been very durable. I've hit a lot of stuff with it. All right, last couple things here. We have the Tusk TPS protector thingy. I don't think I've ever really used it. It doesn't look like it's taken any hits, but it's a pretty cheap piece, so I'd recommend it. I'd use it. I'd buy it again. And finally, the Turbis frame guard slash little grip thingy. So the stock frame guards on the new KTMs only go up to like about here. So, and if you tip over a lot, you will dent your frame up here. So these go up a little higher and do give you a little bit extra grip, even though I personally can't feel it, because when you're standing on your bike, your boot is more over here than it is over here. But if you are standing this far forward, it does help. All right, everybody. So this concludes part 2 of my long-term review of my 2022 Husky TE150i. Hopefully you found this useful. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And please make sure you watch part 1 where I go over my experience with the bike in general and some of the pros and cons of this bike, and some of the reliability and durability and things like that. And then keep your eyes open for part 3 where we will crack open this bad boy and see what it looks like inside. And yeah, I'm going to get off this mountain because the sun is going down, and luckily I have a headlight. But yeah, I'm gonna just enjoy the last little bit of this beautiful day. Look at this absolutely gorgeous evening. This is what riding dirt bikes is all about. Just getting out there, enjoying the nice days, enjoying nature, enjoying your friends, just having a great time. Hope you guys have a great evening or morning or summer or winter or fall, and hope you get to spend some time on the bike today.